Talk Business Arkansas is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau, the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas, the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, Noble Strategies, the Arkansas Healthcare Association, and Delta Trust and Bank.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to today's Talk Business Arkansas update. We've got some new polling numbers in the race for governor on the Democratic side. We've also got a lot happening at the state capitol, but first let's begin with our business headlines. Walmart is going to focus more on Hispanic shoppers. Hispanic and Latino shoppers across the U.S. wield more than $1.2 trillion of buying power annually, with projections of $1.5 trillion by 2015, according to new research. Comes as no surprise that Walmart plans to focus more on this powerful consumer group. Walmart is already the biggest retail spender in the Hispanic market, according to Ad Age, doling out a reported $66.6 million in 2010, the most recent year for results. The retailer said last year it planned to ramp up that investment by 100% in the next year or so. The majority of Walmart's Hispanic stores are concentrated in 8 states, including 171 in Texas, 126 in California, 50 in Florida, 36 in Arizona, and 33 in New Mexico. In August 2012, Simmons First National Corporation made a major announcement that caught the financial world and Arkansas business leadership by surprise. The Pine Bluff-based banking group said its longtime leader, Chairman and CEO Tommy May, would be stepping down at the end of 2013. May's successor, George Macris, 56, a 15-year board member, was chosen to lead the banking enterprise. As CEO-elect, he'll be working with May and a team of banking veterans to transition to the new regime. Who is George Macris and what's his background? You can check out the latest on our website at talkbusinessarkansas.com, or you can find an online version of our magazine, Talk Business Arkansas, with that article in it. Now, after this word from our sponsors, we'll run through some political headlines at the state capitol, and later I'll be joined by David Ramsey with the Arkansas Times to talk about what's happening on the healthcare beat. I'm Roby Brock. This is Talk Business.
I don't think it's going to be an easy conversation because they are very strong-willed. I think it's going to be important to us that we know that you're somewhere in a facility that looks after you, has compassion, has care, and you respect it. I mean, I'd love to look after them. I'd love to be able to take care of them, but I don't think I could. That'd be a wrong choice on my part.
Arkansas's skilled nursing and assisted living centers provide quality care for our seniors.
Farm Bureau helps protect its members in more ways than you might think. They've always been the voice of agriculture in Arkansas, working on behalf of folks like me when nobody else would. And Farm Bureau stands for the values that Arkansas families care about. They've protected my right to farm and make a living, which helps everybody who likes food on the table. You know what they say, Arkansas counts on agriculture, and agriculture counts on Farm Bureau.
The Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas. The State Chamber AIA is the leading voice for business at the state capitol and serves as the primary business advocate on all issues affecting Arkansas employers. Our mission is to promote a pro-business, free enterprise agenda and prevent anti-business legislation, regulations, and rules. Now more than ever, business matters. Learn more at arkansasstatechamber.com.
Let's enter the world of politics. Here's what happened today at the state capitol. The House Public Transportation Committee shot down House Bill 1418, which would shift sales and use tax revenues tied to cars and vehicles from state general revenue to a designated highway fund. The bill only received 10 yes votes, but needed 1 more to clear the committee. The bill is presented by former Highway Commissioner Representative Jonathan Barnett, would phase in the tax revenue transfer over 10 years. The bill is an outcome of a bipartisan Blue Ribbon Commission on Highway Funding. Barnett argued that highway revenues have been in decline for nearly 2 decades due to car fuel efficiencies that have reduced the taxes collected on motor fuel taxes, a primary source of highway funding. Opposition from Governor Beebe, who is against dipping into general revenues, helped kill the bill. A new poll shows former Congressman Mike Ross with a sizable lead over former Lieutenant Governor Bill Halter. And Highway Commissioner John Burkhalter among Democratic primary voters in the 2014 Arkansas governor's race. In a three-way Democratic primary race, Ross pulled 45% support to Halter's 27% and Burkhalter's 7%. Undecided voters accounted for 22% of those polled. The poll was conducted by Washington, D.C.-based Chisholm Strategies. It surveyed 817 self-identified Democratic primary voters across Arkansas. And you can access those poll results and more on our website at talkbusinessarkansas.com. After this final word from our sponsors, we'll sit down with David Ramsey of the Arkansas Times. He covers the healthcare beat up here at the state capitol, among other things for them. He's got a lot of information to share. We're going to get you caught up to speed on what's happening right after this.
Noble Strategies is a bipartisan state and federal government affairs firm with a successful track record of providing effective advocacy for business, government, and nonprofit entities. Noble Strategies provides service in areas such as lobbying, public affairs, trade association management, and marketing campaigns. Learn more at noblestrat.com.
I was looking for a bank that could best protect my finances.
That shared my passion for my business's potential.
A bank that offered investment expertise,
lending support, insurance guidance.
A bank that delivered full financial support.
That's how I found True Balance.
True Balance.
From my bank.
From my bank.
Delta Trust and Bank, the expertise to meet all your financial needs.
One of the real advantages of electric cooperatives membership is having a voice in our state's energy future.
Not a week goes by without important energy issues making headlines. These are issues that need to be discussed. And you should know that as policies are being developed, the cooperatives are looking out for our members, advocating what's best for you.
We are your friends and neighbors.
We are your local electric company.
The electric cooperatives.
We are Arkansas.
Joined now by David Ramsey. He's a writer with the Arkansas Times, associate editor over there. Thank you so much. He is the guru on healthcare reform here at the Capitol this session. You're doing a great job. So
Thank you.
I know you get a lot of pats on the back, but I even hear legislators on both sides of the aisle saying 2 thumbs up.
I'll do my best on it.
Let's talk about where things stand today. So we're here on Thursday afternoon. Speaker Carter says by the end of this week, which means about one more day, his arbitrary deadline, he wants to see something on paper about where this Medicaid/private option goes. Do you think it happens, and what will it look like?
Well, it's a little hard to say whether it will happen just because it's a little hard to interpret what he means. We did ask, what does he want on paper? Who is going to put it on paper? And he wasn't quite able to pin that down. I do think that in the next, I don't know whether we'll see it tomorrow. I think that in the next few weeks, we will see some form of legislation. And what I suspect this is going to have to be logistically is you'll have a piece of legislation that articulates very clearly what the plan is, or as clearly as they can. Mm-hmm. And then the actual appropriation may be a sort of separate bill. They are going to do something that, just like before, requires a 3/4 majority.
On the appropriation bill, do we have a hard number at this point in time, or is that still a little bit nebulous?
Oh, I think that's very nebulous. And I mean, the truth is, in practice, I don't know exactly how all of this functions, but in practice, you're not talking about much money, and maybe not much at all for the first 3 years because you're getting the full federal match. Now, logistically, the money has to go through the Medicaid program,
right.
So in that sense, it's an appropriation. Are we going to have a hard number in place? The answer is no.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other side of that silo, this framework of what it is that they are working towards as a bipartisan consensus here. What will be some of the main kind of points that you think will be laid out in that framework structure?
Well, I think basically, for folks that have been following this, what we've been calling the private option would route, all of the money that was going to go to Medicaid expansion will go through the Medicaid program, but that's really just a technical thing. The money will go in order for folks to buy private health insurance on the exchange, and it will fund their full premiums to do so. The other sort of piece of it is that part of doing that is there are certain folks that currently get services in the Medicaid program that will be moving to the exchange. So that will also be sort of part of the framework. And in that sense, and I think this is appealing to Republicans, in that sense, the Medicaid program will be smaller. It will be serving less people. That doesn't mean a cut in service. It just means that instead of getting the service through Medicaid, folks will be getting the service through the exchange. What this will look like in practice is people between 0 to 138% of the federal poverty level, so low-income folks that don't have insurance now, will be able to buy private insurance on the exchange, and the premiums for that insurance will be fully picked up by the government. For these first 3 years, that's all federal government. Down the road, eventually the state will have to start chipping in a little bit.
Do you think that in that framework proposal that Speaker Carter's alluded to, that I think ultimately is what comes before this body for a vote, you think they get into some of the weeds in terms of we want this many number of potential competitors in the marketplace, we want the things to work a certain way? Do you think they kind of set targets and guidelines?
I think there will be some general targets and guidelines. I mean, here's the thing: you mentioned carriers, and that's a big deal for this so-called private option to work well. Part of the idea is that competition is going to drive down premiums a little bit. We'll see if that happens or not. But the way for that to happen is to get a lot more carriers into the exchange than they thought they would have before. Now, the final decision for what those carriers are going to be comes in June. Carriers are waiting to see whether we do the private option. So you have this kind of situation where in order to figure some of these things out, you actually kind of have to go forward and say, this is what we're doing. That's why, to some extent, inevitably, whatever legislation comes out of this is going to be it's going to have as many details as possible, but I do think there's going to be an element of kind of this is the broad framework that we're going forward with.
I think there will also be a component in there of legislative oversight so that there is a regular checking in as to what is happening and how things are
I suspect
progressing.
There may be some kind of working committee, and I would imagine that folks like Senator David Sanders, Representative John Burris, who've been very involved in this process, would likely be on a working committee like that.
Let's talk about the raw politics of it now, okay?
Yeah.
Because this is looking like it's going to take a 3/4 majority, a super majority in both chambers. Pretty tall order since you've got Republican majorities in those two chambers. You've been doing your expando meter there, which you might need to rename your private option meter or something. I don't know. You have to go with another name.
It's still expansion, though.
Okay.
It's expansion of coverage. It just uses a different mechanism to achieve that.
You're at around 75% with your
mechanism.
last kind of glimpse there. Where do you think the temperature is today?
I think the temperature is going up, and the reason I think that it's going up is because of a study that DHS released the findings of on Monday. Now, we don't have a lot of hard numbers. We basically just have a summary of what they found. But DHS is claiming that based on, they had some consultants, actuaries, and folks from the insurance department, and legal consultants as well, that looked at this in detail, and what they found is that one of the things that folks have been saying about the private option, okay, it's a great deal for the state, Republicans like it because it's using private markets, but it's going to cost the federal government a lot more. A lot of people still think it's going to cost the federal government a lot more, but DHS is coming in and saying, no, based on if you actually look at the numbers in Arkansas, it might only be 15% more, it might be much less than that, it might even be a wash. That's a big political difference maker, because having spoken with Republican lawmakers, one of their biggest concerns is, hey, we don't want to do anything that's going to add to the debt. That was part of our objection from the get-go.
And along those veins, too, is you've got the potential for that thing to drive down because of some other dynamics and factors that could be involved in terms of Medicaid reform, some of the payment initiatives, some of the other things that are underway.
Sure, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, I think the biggest thing that the DHS study did is just saying, if we look at Arkansas-specific factors, if we apply what they believe will be the impact of added carriers and added customers in the exchange, that the extra cost is a lot less than folks think. Now, again, we don't have a lot of hard numbers, and those will be coming out in the next few weeks, but DHS asserting that, I think, is a big deal and probably helps some Republicans that may be on the fence about this. Now, I will say, politically, I think the big question is, now I always have to have the caveat because they'll get mad at me if I don't, no Republican lawmaker has endorsed this plan. But there are some Republican lawmakers who have spoken very positively about it. both Speaker Carter, Michael Lamoureux, the Majority Leader in the Senate, and probably the big four names that we keep hearing, Senator Sanders, Representative Burris, Representative Westerman, and Senator Dismang, are sort of the four Republican lawmakers that have been behind developing this framework. I think politically what it's going to come down to is, those are guys that generally have a fair amount of conservative cred. Will Republican lawmakers who may be on the fence listen to them? Or will they listen to, critics from the right? Because we're eventually going to get some critics from the right. For the most part, people have been pretty quiet. You haven't had a lot of loud conservative voices saying, hey, we don't like this new private option. I know that, you and I were in an insurance committee meeting the other day, and we heard some Tea Party folks kind of complaining about it. I think that is eventually coming down the pipeline. We'll see. And I think what it will come down to is, those Republican lawmakers that might be on the fence, who do they trust? Who are they going to listen to?
Yeah, and you've got Democratic Governor Beebe, pretty lock solid,
yes.
or solid lock on going forward. For the most part, I think the Democratic minorities in both chambers are pretty much bought in on this.
Yeah,
and so it is this Republican swing vote here is what you're talking about.
Absolutely, and I mean the House Democrats had a press conference where they basically said en masse we're for it. So it's going to come down to swing votes, and I think you may see a little bit of a split between what we might think of as establishment Republicans and then more of the Tea Party wing. But again, if we're thinking in expandometer terms, things look very positive. Everything, you talk to folks that are deeply involved in this, and it seems like, as Davy Carter would say, they're moving the ball down the field. It seems like things are progressing toward a yes. But again, we have to keep in mind, ultimately, this is about getting that 3/4, and that it's an unpredictable bunch. So we'll see what happens.
All right, he's David Ramsey with the Arkansas Times. You can follow work on their blog at arkansastimes.com. And he is doing stuff every other day, or every day, all the time. So I appreciate you, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Roby.
All right. We'll be back next week with more Talk Business. I'm Roby Brock. Take care.
Talk Business Arkansas is brought to you by the Arkansas Farm Bureau, the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas, the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, Noble Strategies, the Arkansas Healthcare Association, and Delta Trust and Bank.